The moment I stepped onto the neutral station, 5 sets of alien eyes turned toward me, and every one of them was smiling in that quiet, dangerous way that means someone already thinks they have won. My name is Daniel Coleman, and I was the only human standing in that vast circular hall. The station belonged to no one and everyone, a meeting ground built for species who did not trust each other enough to meet anywhere else. I had been sent here to speak for Earth, a planet that, according to most of the galaxy, had only just learned to knock on the door of the greater universe. I could feel the weight of that reputation pressing on my shoulders the second I walked in. 5 delegations sat across 5 long tables, each raised on its own platform, each lit by its own colored light. They had gathered to decide something simple on paper and enormous in truth, whether humanity would be recognized as a species with rights or simply marked as territory waiting to be claimed. I was the only vote for Earth in a room full of powers older than our written history. The first to speak was a delegate from a hive species, its body covered in shifting crystal plates that clicked softly as it moved. It did not waste time on greetings. "Since you are new here," it said, its voice a strange harmony of many small mouths speaking together, "allow us to show you what strength truly looks like." A hologram bloomed above its table, a ship shaped like a slow, patient mountain, meant to grind down anything in its path rather than strike quickly. The crystal delegate explained, almost bored, how many worlds had surrendered the moment that ship entered their sky, not because of a single shot fired, but because resistance became pointless. Before I could respond, the second delegate leaned forward, a tall reptilian figure with eyes like burning coins. Its people were known through certain trade routes as builders of war, proud of it, unashamed of it. "Our ship does not wait to be feared," it hissed, and its own hologram appeared, bristling with defensive spines and armored plating, built to look as intimidating as possible from every angle. "Fear saves lives. Ours, not always yours." I nodded politely, though my stomach had started to tighten. 2 down, 3 to go, and I had nothing yet to answer with. The third delegate barely had a face I could read, a smooth, silver being from a race that had replaced most of its biology with something calmer and colder. Its voice came out flat and even, without any performance at all, which somehow made it more unsettling than shouting would have been. "Efficiency is the only virtue that matters," it said. Its ship appeared next, a slim, geometric shape, surrounded by a cloud of smaller drone vessels, moving in perfect formation. "We do not need size, we need precision. A single flaw in your enemy is worth more than 1,000 cannons." I swallowed and kept my expression steady, though I was very aware that I represented a species that, from their point of view, still fought its own conflicts with far less coordination than that. The fourth delegate came from a species so old that its representatives spoke slowly, as if every word had already been considered 100 times before it left their mouth. Their ship, when it appeared, looked almost beautiful, sweeping lines and gentle curves, more like a monument than a machine. "We have outlived younger empires by understanding patience," the delegate said. "Our ship has never needed to prove itself. History already has." By then I felt smaller than I had in years, sitting in that chair, watching 4 civilizations lay their power on the table like cards in a game I did not know the rules to. The fifth delegate was different from the rest, rougher around the edges, clearly representing a faction built more from ambition than tradition. Its ship, when revealed, was a mismatched giant of metal plating, clearly gathered and welded together from many sources, ugly but undeniably massive. "We do not care how it looks," the delegate said with something close to a laugh. "We care that it works, and that it is bigger than whatever you brought, little human." All 5 of them looked at me then, waiting. I felt the unspoken question hanging in the air, the same one I had been dreading since I arrived. "Show us yours." I opened my mouth, and for one terrible second, nothing came out. I thought about lying, about claiming some grand fleet was simply delayed, about buying time with a smile and a joke. My hands were steady on the table, but underneath it, my fingers were pressed hard against my knee, out of sight. Our vessel, I said carefully, choosing each word like a man walking across thin ice, is still arriving. It travels a longer path than most, out of habit more than necessity. The Hive delegate's crystal plates clicked in what I was fairly sure was amusement. The reptilian delegate did not bother hiding a low, satisfied sound in its throat. Even the ancient, patient species allowed itself the smallest curve of something like pity. I kept talking, buying seconds, describing Earth's history in broad strokes, our climb from simple tools to space travel in what was, admittedly, a short amount of time by their standards. I could see in their eyes that none of it mattered. Words were cheap here. They wanted to see steel. Then the station shuddered. It was not a violent motion, more like the whole structure had taken a slow, deep breath. Lights along the ceiling flickered once, then steadied. Every alien in the room straightened at the same moment, heads tilting toward sensors and screens I could not read. The silver delegate spoke first, its flat voice cracking slightly for the first time since I had entered the room. Something large has entered the system. The reptilian delegate's coin-colored eyes narrowed toward a display only its people could interpret clearly. Whatever it saw made the proud line of its shoulders stiffen. I felt my own pulse rise, not from fear exactly, but from the strange, helpless feeling of watching something unfold that I did not fully understand yet either. A new shape appeared on the shared display in the center of the hall, translated by the station itself for every species present to see. It was not sleek, it was not elegant. It did not shimmer with polish or gleam with new paint. It looked exactly like what it was, a vessel built by a species that had spent its entire short history preparing for the worst, layer after layer of overlapping systems, thick armored plating, scarred from what looked like decades of hard use, weapons ports built not for display, but clearly meant to function long after lighter designs would have failed. The Hive delegate's clicking stopped completely. "This is your ship," the reptilian delegate said slowly, and for the first time its voice held no mockery at all. "That is the Halloway," I said, and I was surprised to hear my own voice come out calm, almost gentle. "A patrol cruiser. We do not usually send anything larger to a first meeting." It seemed excessive. The ancient species delegate leaned forward for the first time since I had entered the hall. "Excessive," it repeated quietly, as if tasting the word. On the display, sensors from all 5 delegations were clearly struggling to fully map the ship's internal structure. I watched their expressions shift as the data refused to settle into anything simple. Redundant systems layered beneath redundant systems, power routed through paths that made no obvious sense until you understood the purpose, so that no single point of failure could ever end the ship completely. It was not built to look strong. It was built to survive being wrong about everything and still come home. The rough-voiced delegate from the mismatched fleet let out a short, uneasy laugh. "Your people built this while still arguing about which language to speak at meetings like this one?" "We build carefully," I said. "We have learned, more than once, what happens when we do not." For a long moment, nobody spoke. The silver delegate's flat voice returned, quieter than before. "Your species has been among the stars for how long?" "Not very long," I admitted. "We are still learning many things." "And yet this," the Hive delegate said, gesturing toward the display, its earlier confidence gone from its many small voices. I let the silence sit there for a moment before answering, because I finally understood something I had not understood when I walked in. They had not been trying to impress me with their ships. They had been trying to warn me, to remind a new small species exactly where it stood. And now, without meaning to, I had reminded them of something too. "We did not build the Halloway to frighten anyone," I said. "We built it because we know what it costs to be caught unprepared. This is simply the ship we send when we want to introduce ourselves properly." The reptilian delegate studied me for a long moment. its burning eyes calculating something I could not quite read. Then, slowly, it inclined its head, not quite a bow, but close enough to one that the meaning was clear. The vote that followed took very little time after that. Humanity was recognized, not as something to be protected, and not as something to be dismissed, but as something to be respected, carefully and immediately. Freedom. As the session ended and the delegates filed out, quieter than they had entered, the ancient species representative paused beside me. "You did not boast even once," it said. "We did not need to," I answered, and I meant it. I stood alone in the hall after they left, watching the image of the Halloway still glowing softly on the display, patient and steady, exactly the way it had been built to be. I thought about the 5 ships I had seen that day, each one designed to impress, each one built around the idea of being feared. Ours had only ever been built around the idea of coming home. And somehow, in that quiet, unglamorous truth, we had said more than any of them.